Great to be with all of you virtually today. I'm Neil Redding. I founded Redding Futures, which is a boutique consultancy focused on helping brands and businesses engage powerfully with the near future, which we normally say is the next 3 to 5 years starting today. And these days, it's starting to feel like the next 3 to 5 weeks might be a good horizon to think about. But we're hopeful that we can actually bring value that is relevant even in the next 3 to 5 weeks today.
I'm Tony. I work at Unity Technologies. We're the company that powers most of the world's interactive content for VR and AR, mobile gaming, and we also have a rich advertising platform I'll tell you about in a little bit. My background, I've been focused on 3D visualization, virtual and augmented reality for more than 2 decades. And at Unity, I oversee our strategy for VR and AR, in particular, how it relates to advertising, and more, I've been involved in retail with Neil and I have been working on this blog publication for a while called The Near Future of Retail. Neil, do you want to tell folks a little bit about NFR?
Yeah, sure. I mean, you can see the URL there. It's at nearfutureofretail.com, so easy to remember. And essentially, yeah, Tony and I realized that we have this passion for kind of the digital physical convergence, both AR and VR and digital 3D, as Tony's described, but also seeing retail as one of the leading the leading industries that's driving all of that technology forward. And hopefully what we share today and what you've seen elsewhere will underscore all of that. So everything we say here, you can go deeper on nearfutureofretail.com if you're interested. So let's
get into it. Yeah, let's do it. Okay, folks. So what we're talking about here, let's frame it a little bit. When you look at online commerce, it's basically been dominated by 2D imagery for the last couple of decades. First, there was the website, and then the imagery on the website became more and more sort of oriented toward selling products, exploring things. And what we're talking about now is the movement from 2D imagery to interactive 3D content, literally leaping off the page, leaping out of the device, to be able to see, touch, feel products, physical products, in 3D technology, possibly in augmented reality where you can bring them into your room or try them on your body, potentially exploring entire showrooms. We're going to talk about all the use cases around this. But really to frame it, this is actually, and this is part of what I do at Unity, this is about a movement toward 3D as user interface, a movement toward terms you may have heard, spatial computing. So this is about game engine technology like Unity, my company, has, powering interactive experiences across the board, and about 3D becoming the next generation of user interface for lots of things: education, training, filmmaking, a lot of different disciplines. But in the context of this conversation, obviously, we're talking about how it can be used in retail. Neil?
Right, and so, yeah, to add to that, this current moment, right, globally, and certainly, for all of us, where we're being required to physically distance from each other, also means that a lot of the ways we engage with physical objects and products, certainly ones that we're considering buying or that we would be shopping for, we're distanced from those as well, right? And so there's a way in which we see this technology as starting to solve this problem, for us, where we have to be physically distant, that we don't even know how long this era is going to last, right? But it feels like there's a lot of acceleration that we expect to be happening over the coming few months. And we want to show you what we hope are some exciting use cases that illustrate those set of possibilities.
Exactly. And, some of you on the session right now may have heard this concept of the digital twin, or that term. A lot of this is about creating digital content that closely mirrors the real world, full environments or individual objects, and then being able to interact with them. So if you've heard that term digital twin, potentially in the context of transforming business operations, or possibly in the context of interactive media, this is what we're talking about: creating a digital twin of physical products and being able to sell them online in applications, be able to share them. We're going to try and cover a handful of use cases, but in this 20 minutes or so we have, we're really going to barely scratch the surface. So let's go, Neil.
Right. Yeah, let's do it. And so just to transition into the next phase, we see this current downtime that we have now as presenting a real opportunity. You hear a lot of people talking about do all the things that you haven't had the chance to do, in your normal sort of rat race life. But we want to show you actually how to start moving from physical products and apply digital transformation to physical products, really, is a lot of what this is about too. So yeah, let's start. So is to make sure we all have a shared understanding of what we're talking about here. What exactly is a digital version of a physical object? So this is actually a Shopify mobile store on a phone. This is a company called Stork. They sell custom-made strollers. And if you've ever bought a stroller, you, I'm sure, can reflect on the reality that it's a very physical thing. It doesn't fit everywhere if you try to walk with it down the sidewalk, or if you try to put it in the back of your car, in your hatchback. And so part of the consideration process is, what does this look like? What does it feel like in the spaces that I'm going to use it in? And so you may want to look at that in your living room and see sort of how big is it? What does it feel like to walk around it? You may want to take a look at what it looks like again in the back of your car or on the sidewalk as you're walking with it. So there's something about being not quite physically present, but virtually present with a three-dimensional object that really helps you relate to it and understand it in the context of something you might want to purchase or bring into your life. So that's what we're talking about here, just so everyone's clear.
And we're going to go through lots more use cases, but before we do that, I want to just take a step back for a second, and so folks can understand the context in which this is happening right now. Neil just showed you a Shopify powered site. So that was a Shopify client, and that company is leaning into this stuff. You may have seen plenty of demos of augmented reality shopping, including some of the ones that we're going to show you in a minute. We'll cover some more use cases. But the thing that's really significant right now is this is not just happening as a set of proof of concept, technology experiments, or one specific product offering by a platform provider or a tool provider like a Shopify. What is happening right now is an industry-wide effort to converge on how products are represented in 3D for interactive use cases of the type we're going to show you today across the industry. It's not enough to be able to just create a 3D model and share it. How do people discover it? How do you share it among different websites? How do you have comparison shopping between them? How do you take that thing throughout the life cycle of a product? And so there's an entire industry initiative. This logo wall we're showing you right now is all the companies that are currently involved in working together to standardize on how 3D represents products. There are file formats out there, GLTF and USDZ. If you're technical, you'll know these terms already, that are becoming sort of ubiquitous standards for how you represent 3D content. They may or may not be up to the task of faithfully representing 3D products, which is why this initiative of all these industry partners has come together to focus on up-leveling those particular file format technologies, looking at other areas where we need to converge on how to do this with the goal of 3D content in the near future, the next 2, 3, 5 years, being as ubiquitous as imagery for all these use cases. And here's just, we can start, let's work through a few more use cases while we're at there, but I want you to understand there's a lot of partners in the industry working on this. These are screenshots from IKEA Place. You may have seen this before. So this is an app you get off the app stores. It's made by IKEA, and it shows you things in the IKEA catalog, select items, and they digitize several of them. And it lets you, with your phone or your tablet, bring them into your house to try them in your room. And if you've ever seen the online commercials for this or the videos going around, it's pretty hilarious because they tend to show live footage of people who've bought an IKEA couch and then they bring it into their house and it's like standing sort of sideways. It's on a slant because it couldn't quite fit into their room. So the whole point of this is let's avoid having to do that. Let's figure out what's going to work in our house before we go shop for it. The end result of this is you don't purchase directly through IKEA Place. You come up with a shopping list, then you go into the store. Neil, did you want to elaborate on that?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think I think you got it. I think there's there's fit, there's aesthetic consistency, there's just sort of how you want your physical space, your home, where we're all spending so much more time now, how you want it to feel, how you want it to look, and sort of reflect your personality and everything else that you decide. And so being able to do that virtually is really compelling. I don't know about you guys, but it can be frustrating and challenging to spend time in an IKEA store and try to like figure out, what goes with what, or what would fit in my house. And so being able to do that more easily and quickly digitally is really great. So augmented reality can be used to help experiment with trying on certain things. And eventually we'll be able to try on all kinds of things that we put on our bodies, including fashion, including garments. That is still in the very early stages because there are a lot of hard problems to solve. What is solved really, really well right now, many of you have probably seen this, is Warby Parker's glasses try on. And it was already really great, right? That they would allow you to go on the website and choose a bunch of pairs of frames, have them shipped really quickly. You can try them on at home, check them out, returns the one you didn't want. But this actually is so good that you can, this is me trying out a pair of frames. And I want you to take a look.
Wait, Neil, those aren't your glasses. These are virtual glasses.
They're virtual glasses, and they just look, to me, they are almost indistinguishable from actual frames. These are translucent frames, but if you look closely, you can see that the transparency, the reflectivity, just the way it fits to my face is super compelling. Like I was blown away. And this actually was leveled up kind of accuracy that they released with the app once the iPhone 10 came out. So that, all of the sensors that the iPhone 10 added made it possible for them to be much more accurate about this. But so there's this, there are other sort of facial try-on scenarios that we'll show in a minute, with makeup and lipstick and so on. But so being able to try things on is a huge dimension of all of this. Let me show you one other example here really quickly. Maybe some of you saw Neha's talk, I think it was at 3 this afternoon. She's the CEO of a company called Obsess. And essentially what they're doing is really looking at the physical, three-dimensional, highly merchandised and styled retail experience that so many of us love, and many of us, I'm sure, work in that industry, and really miss this experience, now that we can't go out to stores for the near future, for the foreseeable future. And so what Obsess is doing is allowing for stores to be fully merchandised in 3 dimensions, which is actually already happening, right? Merchandisers will map out a 3D model of a physical store, but then be able to experience this on a mobile device, right, in the comfort of your own home. And so, of course, it's not quite the same, but what's interesting is I think they're exploring a territory that is super interesting, and it's more compelling. It's certainly closer to that physical retail experience than your standard e-commerce experience is on a phone. So again, it's another aspect of this digital physical convergence that we find really interesting and that we've been exploring a lot on our publication as well.
Oh yeah, so let's jump into this. So you've seen several use cases now that are all kind of on the consumer side. Trying on products, trying out products, going to a virtual showroom. And most of what we've shown you so far has been delivered in applications. That is, so you make a thoughtful decision to go to the App Store and you get IKEA Place, or you get Amazon's AR shopping app, which they have, which lets you see how a Roomba will look going around on your living room floor. So you can see a lot of those kind of products in the home. But what's really also interesting about this is because it's kind of based on lightweight, ubiquitous technology, real-time 3D rendering, and more web technology for delivering the content, we can actually have consumers discover this in many, many places that aren't just in-app. So, the point of advertising and reaching people with your brand is to reach them where the audience is. And the audience isn't all in the App Store looking for ways to shop. They are doing that, but in addition to doing that, they're on social, they are searching for items, they are playing games, and these are all amazing places to also discover content that you can touch and purchase in the same way. So if you see the graphic on the left of the screen, that is the result of a Google search. Google is still working on this technology, hasn't been fully productized yet, but they showed this at their I/O conference a year ago-ish, a little under a year ago, and that was I search for a sneaker, New Balance sneaker shows up in my search result on my phone. I can spin that shoe around right there in place. It is a 3D model. And then with a simple tap of a button or a gesture or a swipe, and it's different ways to do this in the user interface, obviously, I can bring that object, in this case, the sneaker, into my physical environment. Everything else you're seeing besides the sneaker in this graphic is a person's room with their clothing on their bed. So this is trying to match it up with your wardrobe. So that all happened as the result of a search. And we're going to see more and more of that stuff. On the top right, what you're seeing here is YouTube's makeup try-on capability, which also kind of happens in place with the audience. You're watching makeup tutorials from one of the influencers out there who shows you how to do makeup. And then you can see a MAC or a Sephora promotion right in that stream that lets you hit a button and try that makeup on your face with the front-facing camera. That is amazing. Again, it's going where the audience is. One more example of this, and there are many, many ways to possibly discover this content, is what you're seeing on the bottom right. These are actually Unity ads. So the group I work in at Unity helps our game publishers make money. When you play a game on mobile, that's typically a free-to-play game. You didn't have to pay for that. What you're paying with is your attention. The space between a game level and the next game level is occupied with advertising content. And that can be for another game, or more and more we're doing that for brands. And that can use augmented reality. In this case, we did something with Miller Lite where you played a little dunking game and you could dunk a leprechaun into a vat of gold coins. And then you see that leprechaun is in your room, it's in your space. And for some reason, even though it's really just a simple mini game, having that character and that content in the space with you is even that much more immersive and engaging. So we're just scratching the surface on the different ways that this content can be discovered. So it is going all the way from discovery to purchase in these flows if it's done right. We're going to come up against time when we want to do Q&A, Neil, so let's keep pushing.
Yeah, we're going to keep pushing.
Yeah.
So this is just a visual that really quickly, you know, as Tony mentioned, we've so far just really talked about consumer, kind of retail customer use cases or brand audience use cases. But the point is, building on what Tony was describing earlier with 3D standards and everyone, you know, every company being involved, products are designed and have been for a while in 3D modeling tools. And so the idea here with these standards is that those same models that are created by product designers can be part of the supply chain through to manufacturers, through to retailers that need to understand the physicality and the dimensions and the appearance of those objects in order to merchandise, in order to stock, in order to put them on shelves, all the way through to those models supporting existing and emerging consumer interaction use cases, right? From the mobile and the web, you know, whether it's advertising or downloadable apps, to XR, which is just shorthand for VR and AR kinds of platforms that could be completely immersive, being able to eventually share these objects in 3 dimensions on social platforms as discrete objects, which we'll talk about a little bit more in a second, and then advertising as Tony described.
Yeah, so it really is all about this picture of potentially end-to-end for a business, depending on what the retailer wants to do, depending on a lot of factors. You may be wondering how this content gets created, and that's one of the billion-dollar questions in this industry right now. Creating 3D content isn't that hard these days, but it's still labor-intensive, especially if you're coming from, maybe I just have the physical product. I don't have a 3D model and a CAD system already. There are myriad companies now trying to attack this problem. What's very interesting about this graphic, this is from a company called Color Mass in Germany. This entire space is rendered. There is nothing real about this. This all came out of 3D models and then through a sophisticated rendering pipeline to produce this showroom. And various companies are producing their 2D imagery this way already. If you go to IKEA's catalog online, just their 2D imagery, or to their print catalog, if you get one in the mail, if you go to kitchens, 100% of that content is virtual, the specific items, not the showrooms. So it's amazing what's already being done, and it's just going to move even more of a direction where these things become completely interactive and online. But again, how to create this content, it's everything from photogrammetry, you know, scanning, to volume capture, to 3D modeling by hand. We have a long list on Near Future of Retail of different people who've contributed articles to the pub about how this can be done and scale it up fast. We're running up against Q&A time, Neil, so do we want to maybe just move forward into a little bit of future casting, so it
Yeah,
gives people time
we're
to
going to take
ask questions.
60 or 90
Yeah.
seconds, I think. Yeah, thanks, Tony. To just talk about the near future. And again, this is the previous near future, which is, you know, the next several years, really. So we're all familiar, I think, at this point with how Instagram allows for the tagging and checkout of certain products in the context of posts and feeds. What is going to be possible thanks to these 3D models and these emerging standards in the very near future is that these objects will be, as Tony was described, you know, actually rendered from 3D objects that could then be extracted, reshared, recontextualized in the context of social posts and other kinds of content, you know, on blogs. So essentially the way that we think about imagery and video now, which, you know, 10 years ago wasn't something that, you know, certainly with video, that each of us in our hands could capture, modify, share. This is going to happen with 3D objects as well, very quickly. And then this is just to say that when we eventually get out back into the world and we spend more time kind of just looking around and noticing like, oh, this person has, you know, some interesting shoes that I like, or this person's carrying a bag that I like, or some other device that's interesting. Very soon also, thanks to computer vision and voice may play a role, and the existence of these 3D models that can then be matched up, we'll be able to actually say things like, I see this object, I see this product, I don't know what it is, but we'll be able to match it to SKU and add it to our carts. So that's something I think is a little bit further out, but being able to see something, want it, like it, add it to your cart is part of what's happening in the very near future as well.
And it's not as far out as we may think, actually. All right, we've got about 3 minutes, maybe 4, to do some Q&A. So, Leandro, I'm going to answer yours right now live. Could you please give some examples of how this technology can be applied to categories with less engagement, e.g. consumer goods? If you're talking about consumer packaged goods, then I'd say that Miller Lite example I gave is a perfect example. So beverage, food and beverage, you're less interacting with the physical product in that case, and more like maybe IP. Like we saw that the Miller Lite leprechaun is sort of an iconic, you know, mascot for them. So if that's what you're talking about, we're seeing a lot of engagement there too. So it's less about interacting with the product itself than it is about interacting with the brand. Neil, do you want to take any of these? Do you have the Q&A up?
Yeah, I'm not seeing it actually. Do you want to?
I'll read. You can answer
Describe
this
one.
one.
Yeah, why don't you read? Sure.
From Abe Winter, does having virtual people or characters in the space with you and the product equal better sales?
You know, there's definitely a lot of data that points to various forms, and it's still early days, right? So there's not a huge amount of data, but we can definitely point you to information, you know, to measurements that, yes, I mean, being physically present results in the case of immersive training, there's better retention, there's better sort of memory of what's happened, and conversion actually is also demonstrably improved in this context too.
Here's one from Susie Wakefield. Do you work with any companies around fitting garments between them and their vendors? So this is fascinating. Neil mentioned at the top end of this that clothing is a little bit tough right now. If you think about when you see what I'm wearing now, that's this black hoodie has wrinkles, the jacket has wrinkles. Being able to, you know, get the folds in fabric, faithfully represent the materials, drape them on different body types, very technically complex. There's experimentation happening there for sure. I was just at PI Apparel, a clothing conference recently, and they are all about technology to help with the clothing industry, but it's really mostly about backroom. It's about producing the garments. It's about sharing them with buyers. It's much less about getting to the end consumer at this point. That's a few years off. I think it's a lot of that is around technical limitations, but we can definitely see that future coming about real soon. I think we got maybe time for another one. Neil, do you want to add to that while I look?
Sure. Yeah.
Thoughts there?
Yeah. Just as I described earlier, I mean, there's a lot of people working really hard on this problem because of, you know, the reasons that we've already described. I mean, there's just a lot of how would I say, commercial and sort of conversion reasons why being able to try on all kinds of products and garments is going to be super valuable. So I would say, since I know Lauren's going to want us to wrap up here, any further questions you have or anything you want to talk about, our information is right here. You can tweet at us. You can go to readyfutures.com or Unity, or go to Near Future Retail, and you can contact us in any of those ways.